Alright, so we're going to be playing the shunting game where I'm going to assemble a train based on a randomized order. Alright, so today we're going to take a look at the Broadway Limited Pennsylvania Railroad Class B6sb steam locomotive number 1446, and this has 0 leading wheels, 6 driving wheels, and 0 trailing wheels, so it's a 060, which is used for shunting. And before we get started, I'd like to thank Broadway Limited for sending me this to review. But yeah, let's get started here in the front. Alright, so in the front we got the gray smoke box. Can't see it's a different color from the rest. And on top we have the headlight, which says 1446 to the side, and below that we have this number plate in yellow. So lots of nice molded-in detail and separate applied grab irons. And behind the headlight there's actually this dynamo, and this would generate electricity for all the lighting systems like the headlight and the marker lights below, which has red in the front and amber on the sides, and these would turn on when the train's in reverse. And there's also this front footplate platforms for workers to stand on, which has a nice wooden texture molded in. There also is this coupler cut lever, just a separate applied piece, and here is the knuckle coupler. And to the side there is this train line hose, which is a nice detail. And I've also noticed there's actually a screw popping up right above the pilot. Now let's go take a look at the side, and again you can see all these different parts, bars and pipes, and over here there's actually this cool builder's plate, which is pretty legible, and it's built over 100 years ago in 1916 by Juniata shops. Also take a look at all this rivet detail and the piping, very nice. And over here there's lots of more pipes and detail, and here is the air compressor to compress air for the air brakes. And then down here we have the cylinder, which leads to the valve gear, which is nicely made. And notice there is a gap between the front wheels, but none in the back. I believe it's to balance the firebox. And we got the brake shoes on the sides and a bit of the undercarriage. There's some pipes. Then we have this running board, which makes a split 1/3 of the way in the front. Then on top we have the sand and steam domes. And here is the firebox where you burn the coal, which is painted gray underneath. And below the cab there is a cylinder, which is an air tank. And to the side there is this weird diagonal thing that sticks out. And here's a look at the cab itself. You can see there's lots of rivet detail, and the windows have a red frame around it, which also has glass inside. And to the side we have the fireman sitting inside, which is painted with a gray hat and blue shirt. And above we have this line that's on a slight angle. It's also two-tone colored. And then we have the road number 1446. And in the back of the cab there are some windows on the sides and an opening in the middle, which you can see some molded-in detail. And there's a platform between the tender and the engine, and it can fold all the way up. And it could drop down like this, and below you can see this drawbar in between, which you could detach by lifting the pin of the tender. And here is the range of motion without the drawbar, which is still limited by the cables. And now let's go take a look at the tender, which says Pennsylvania for Pennsylvania Railroad. So in the front there is this ladder step up to get to the cab, and inside you can see there's doors to access the coal. I also noticed this valve is only on one side. And on top we have the coal bunker with nice realistic looking coal, although on closer inspection there is a bit of brown residue on it. I tried brushing it off, but it kind of stays there. I think it's just the adhesive glue marks that hold it in, but maybe coal comes in brown in real life. Then on the bottom we have a standard pair of 2-axle bogies and this random slit on the side. Let me know if you guys know what it's for. Now you can also see the rivet details on the side. Then in the middle we have a bit of bottom detail, probably for the brake system. Now you might have noticed this tender is a bit weird since it kind of slants in the back, which is actually done to give the crew better visibility going backwards, so you don't have that corner of the tender blocking the view. I also noticed that this part on the side makes 2 holes, so maybe it's for holding rods or something. Alright, then in the corners we have some stirrup steps, some footplates, and the coupler, and lots of detail throughout. There's some nice little data printing. Then above we have the marker lights with this pipe going across. And there are these tiny attachments. I think it's kind of like a lift ring. And we have a rear headlight. Then on the engineer side, there is this little staircase with a railing. And above we have the water fill hatch. And here's a look at the other side. Not much going on here. Then for the cab, we have the engineer. His shirt's a lot bluer than the fireman's. I also noticed that there's this big rod inside, some kind of a lever. And this side has lots of piping underneath the sill, including the reversing gear, which is used when you want to go backwards. There also are these little footholds that go to the top. This side's also a bit different because the running board, it goes up in the middle and then down on the edges, while the other side there is just one little step up. So that's it for the sides. Now let's go check out the top. Alright, so here's a bird's eye view of it for the engine and the tender. So in the front, here's how the inside of the smokestack looks like. There's like a silver ring. Then we have the sand dome with the pipes coming out of it. Then there's a steam dome with these golden whistles in the back of it. And after that, we have the bell, which actually does swivel. Although it kind of like wobbles here in the middle. It doesn't really go back and forth like a pendulum. Then there's this metal wire that goes to the cab. So for the cab roof, there actually is this hatch on top, which does open up. And inside you can see some wires, which is a nice little feature. Although it doesn't open up all the way, even though the railings go out further. Alright, and then here's how it looks like from the bottom view. I suppose this is where the motor is. Got some wires in the front, and there are some traction tires on the rear driving wheels. In the back, there is a triangle that dips down. Then we have the drawbar in the middle. And on the tender, the trucks do have electrical pickups and a bit of bottom detail. Alright, so here I just want to give a size comparison with a Gevo, which is a modern mainline locomotive. The B6 is much shorter in height and in body length. Now here's a modern day switcher, the MP15AC, which shares the same role as the B6. You can see they're actually kind of similar in height, not too different, but in terms of length, the B6 is much longer just because it has this coal tender, which also has water in it, compared to the modern day, all the fuel's in this diesel tank, which is a lot more compact, and the crew is seated much higher in the cab. Also, another benefit of not having this tender is that the crew has way better visibility, especially with these extra large windows, instead of having to look through this tiny back window with this whole tender in the way. So here I have a CSX SD40-3. It's actually the most closest in terms of length, though it is a tad bit longer. And if you bring out the GP38-2, it is shorter than the B6, so its length is between these two. Alright, so we're going to be playing the shunting game where I'm going to assemble a train based on a randomized order. So this rail yard has 20 cars, which I labeled on these cards, and we're going to put the consist on this middle track. Alright, so now I'm going to pick 6 random ones. Alright, so the first one is a pipe load. Then we got a BNSF hopper, a TTX well car, a UFix gondola, a TTX boxcar, and the last car is a NS coal car protector. Alright, so here's our consist. Now I'm going to try to get them in order on this track. Alright, so let's focus on these first 3. So the NS coal car is right there. Then the TTX boxcar, that is on the very end, so that's pretty good. And then we have the UFix gondola. Now that's at the very back, so that's a bit of a problem. So this is the first car we need, but there's 2 cars in the way, so I think I'll move these guys to another siding, and then I'll put the TTX in front of this. Alright, so we had the first two down. Now we gotta grab the U-Fix gondola, which is right there. Alright, so once we have that down, the next car is the TTX well car, which is also in the back. So now we have two cars left. So the BNSF hopper, that's going to be over there, and the pipe load, that is right there. And they each have one car in front of it, so I'll have to move them out of the way. Alright, so now we assembled the full train. Now let's go try to run this. So for my final thoughts, the Broadway Limited Pennsylvania Railroad B6sb. It's been a while since we reviewed a steam locomotive. It's pretty nicely detailed with small printed text, pipes, grab irons, wooden texture on the footplates, and the metal valve gear, crew figures in the cab. The headlights and marker lights do light up, and the cab vent can slide open. And it's interesting to see the unique slanted tender of the Pennsylvania Railroad switchers, which yes, you can use this as a yard switcher, working in a rail yard or pulling trains if needed. The B6 is Pennsylvania Railroad's most successful shunter. I also found the packaging interesting, where the locomotive is screwed onto this large board, which keeps it nice and secure, which you don't actually have to unscrew it all the way like I did the first time. One thing though, when I first opened the package, there is quite a strong paint smell, so I recommend you do air it out. Also, there was a bit of brown residue on the coal, but that's pretty minor. Overall, it's a cool little engine from the old days, and thanks a lot to Broadway Limited for sending me this to review. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Subscribe if you hadn't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.